my name is Cobi van Tonder, and I'm part of the Bologna team for this Erasmus Plus exchange. Before I start, I'd just like to get an idea of who is in the room. Are you all PhD students, undergrads? What's just a general few voices? Undergrad music, classical music, or
mechanical engineering.
Mechanical engineering. So just a quick rise of hand, who are in engineering?
No, the great majority are from the academy.
Music? Okay. Like composition or focus on performance? Composition? Performance? Okay, like classical instruments? Other forms of contemporary music, popular music? Okay. Who has heard of auralization before? Okay, that's good to know, so I don't jump to conclusion. Who's been in the previous lecture of Marco just now? Okay. Okay. Yeah, because he did a perfect technical introduction for what I'm going to talk about, but it doesn't matter. I will review the most important bits, and my talk is kind of going to be a combination of science, but also a lot of speculative science. So, you know, take that, don't, how can I put it? I'm going to take poetic liberty with focus on imagination and artistic creation. So it's a little bit different to some of the previous lectures that are really scientific and empirically reproducible. Okay, so I will tell you when it is speculative. We're going to look at multidisciplinary uses of virtual acoustics or auralization, and focus on cultural and natural heritage, preserving acoustic heritage, sonic archaeology, also termed archive acoustics, and sometimes referred to as intangible heritage. And then we're going to look at and talk about different uses for this. For example, understanding better what music premieres would have sounded like in the past, due to sites they were performed in, sometimes sites that don't exist any longer. So in a kind of way, forensic listening, obtaining sensory data for hypothesis and speculative contemplation about the past, to try and use sonic and acoustic clues to figure out what a space was likely used for. Imagining distant spaces and even sound on other planets, or imaginary spaces in creative work especially. And then we're going to look at auralization and convolution reverb as a tool in sound design for games, film, interactive media, and in composition to create greater realism, as well as the embedded historical and poetic meaning connected to specific site-specific data. And then just a brief outline. We're going to look at, I think, I didn't time it exactly, but I think we're looking at an hour and a half with a break in the middle. We're going to do a short introduction, starting with echo, perceptual ideas about what defines the sonic space, poetic and conceptual ideas around sound and space, an introduction to sonic archaeology, and we're going to explain virtual acoustics and its importance in understanding and recreating historical, contemporary, and futuristic sound environments. I'm just wondering why the font is so... Can you all see pretty well? Because from here it looks a little bit low res. Anyway, it's in focus, right? So it's okay, readable. Then we're going to talk about case studies and listen. Unfortunately, most of the listening examples are just in stereo, but they are originating from multi-channel projects, including Hagia Sophia, Shavinda Huantar, a virtual Stonehenge, a sonic digital twin of the Chauvet Cave in France, and other projects and links. And I'm going to talk also about a project of mine, Acoustic Atlas. And then in part 2, we'll do a demo of how you can use these techniques yourself. Okay, so and then I just want to warn you to be sharp, because I'm not going to ask you a lot of feedback. I don't like to deliver a one-way lecture. It's more exciting and interesting for me also to hear what your thoughts, okay? So I'm going to play you a sound, and I want you to observe and tell me, in the context of sound and space, why do you think I'm playing this, and what do you hear? Okay, what did you hear?
Something vibrating.
Something vibrating, good.
It was like a car.
Like a car,
Yes, machine.
like a machine, correct. Correct. And by the way, there's no right or wrong answers either. Every observation in this context mattered. It was in fact a transducer placed into a drum that was also called the bass shaker. What perceptual elements did you notice? And also about the camera, it's just me sticking a microphone into a drum and taking it out again. What changes did you observe? If you think about space, is the microphone inside, outside, where? Yes.
Like the intensity is more and more, I don't know how to say it, but when the phone was in the thing, it was more intense sound. It was not like louder, but intense. We can feel the vibrations. It was not just a sound, but some physical, like, I don't know how to say it.
Very good, yes. If you think in terms of frequency, what changed? Was it more
Lower frequency.
lower, more bass? So what do you think happened inside the drum? Like why did the bass increase?
Because the sound is focused in a smaller space.
It's reflected.
Reflected, yes. So the sound waves are bouncing against the surface. Most of it is bouncing back. Maybe a bit is getting absorbed and going through. But those waves that are trapped inside are like, if you imagine waves, they're going back and forth, so it gets more intense. Okay, anything else? Okay, so that's kind of, I'm playing this to you to start thinking about sound and space and the relationship. Where are we, the listener? How is the room we are in, or the space we are in, affecting the sound and the sound source? So, perceptual ideas. What defines a sonic space? Let's just try anything very fast. What defines a sonic space? If you're starting to compose or play, what are the elements that's there? It's very obvious basic things.
Sound
Sound. Very good. Exactly. In order. What else is present?
Frequency.
Frequencies. Yes, in other words, different pitch colors. What else?
Echo. If there's an
Echo, fantastic. Reverberations and resonance. What else?
Maybe material.
Material, like like these panels in this room, the floor, the furniture. What else? A very important part. Direction to what?
Audience.
The human listener, right? To our ears. Okay, so here are, and then the relationships between the listener and the source. Movement is another thing. We have things moving in space, sound waves moving. You already said that. Then perceptual factors, which we'll get to later. So in the previous lecture, we delved in quite a lot of detail about human perception and how we hear. I'm just very basically just going to add that when we think of spatial sound and designing for space, it is basically, we think of human-centered design, because we are not composing for the floor or for water, we're composing for humans and human ears, so we have to keep this in mind. When we think of sound in space, the typical first thing in spatial sound to think about is where are my sources placed in sound? And so what you see here is a picture from Max MSP spatializer. And so there in the center you see the human head, and all these little numbers are sources or source positions. So we refer to this basically as the source or the places where the sounds are, and then the listener position is also the place where your microphone is. And of course they can move around, they can be static, there can be many of them, they can be just a solo sound. And today there's fantastic also concert venues. This is a great view of the Sonic Lab in Belfast, which has a grid floor, speakers all around, in the ceiling, even below the floor, so you can really play around with moving sounds around. Also artists like Bernard Leitner, who was an architect and an artist in the 70s already, experimented with all kinds of ideas of the body in relation to sound, as these installations beautifully demonstrate. He was basically drawing through panning sounds around the body or letting you walk around it in space. And then also I have to mention John Chowning, who has, I think, as far as I know, and some of the professors in the room can correct me if I'm wrong, has done the first spatial audio piece in history with Sabalith and what's the other one, Stria, where it, for the first time there was quad. Am I correct in saying he was the first? I think so. Anyway, he made in this paper published very important also observations about, you know, when we think of close and far and depth and thinking of perspective, what if we have somebody far away singing loudly and somebody close to us singing very softly, and the level is actually the same? But why is it that humans know that the sound far away is louder? Right? Again, it is basically spectral cues, and the reverberation, the relationship of the reverberation will be different than when it's close up, because you will hear more reverb or reflections than when somebody is close to you. You will hear more direct sound, but also you will hear more of all the frequencies, whereas if someone is far away, the high frequencies will get lost in the distance, or it will be softer. So continuing with thinking about spatial sound. So now we thought of source and listeners, but what is the other very important aspect of space and sound? I'm going to ask you, like, if you think of, let's say somebody singing here versus in this space, or in Chapin de Juanta, in a Laberintos underground, or in a forest, that same sound is going to be completely different, right? And with this, or even in an anechoic chamber where there's no reflections at all. And this is kind of the powerful thing about using this technology, where we do what's called, we record an impulse response of a space. And it allows us to kind of take a photograph of these, a sonic photograph or fingerprint of the information of these reflections, and now we can use it creatively. So I'm just going to go back again. So if you think there, it will be a very elaborate, shiny kind of reverberant sound, right? And here you will hear more details of insects and birds around you, and your footsteps or your voice will be like almost like it has such clarity, because there's not going to be other noise, city traffic noise or anything. It's going to be a very, I've spent a lot of time in nature, and so I'm very passionate about the effect when you're in a quiet nature space. Also the reflections are like, it feels like every leaf is absorbing a bit, and it's a complex kind of fractal sonic acoustic landscape. That's just beautiful to be in. So we can think about the qualities of space, right? Is it vast? Is it open? Is it soft, shiny? Is it very liquid-like, as if you are swimming in sound? There's been an experiment where they did perceptual tests of people eating crisps. And when they removed the sound, the enjoyment of eating chips goes away. We need the crunchy sound to really enjoy it. So then, like, why would we use this? What emotional qualities can we obtain from this? Like, if you are designing a soundtrack for a futuristic film, of all these qualities, what would you likely use? For example, in Blade Runner, you will notice there's lots and lots of reverb in this futuristic Tokyo, right? It's kind of like it's raining all the time. It's a certain kind of dystopian mood that you're trying to convey. When it rains, there's also more reflections. Versus if you want to convey a feeling of the sun is coming up, the storm is over, you would use different qualities. So Athanasius Kircher in 1650 described the science of sound from the perspective of the echo. And I really like his two definitions for echo, because it combines both reflected sound and resonance, which is in a way for me the two fundamental aspects. So reflected or repeated voice or reverb, and resonance. Next I want to play you iconic sound art piece by Alvin Lucier. Hands up, has anyone heard of Alvin Lucier? Okay, I encourage you to look him up because he's also composed phenomenal music where he attached EEG sensors to his brain and he plays drums with it and all kinds of really interesting works. Here he is, the piece is called I Am Sitting in a Room, and he records himself telling you he's sitting in a room once, and then he uses a loudspeaker and plays his recording back into the room and records it again, recursively. And you hear how the resonance of the room transforms the sound. I'm just going to skip through it because it's a very long piece.
I am sitting in a room different from the one you are in now. I am recording the sound of my speaking voice, and I am going to play it back into the room again and again until the resonant frequencies of the room reinforce themselves, so that any semblance of my speech, with perhaps the exception of rhythm, is destroyed. What you will hear then are the natural resonant frequencies of the room articulated by speech. I am sitting in a room different from the one you are in now.
I like to think of a room as a filter, because we, as musicians, we understand what we can do with filters. How in many ways you can use a filter by cutting high frequencies, or for example, if a DJ does a transition from one track to the next, it's a very typical thing to cut out the bass, only keep the highs, and bringing the bass of the next track or the other way around, and then crossfade between it, right? There's so many things we can do with filters, and also to morph things and accentuate different aspects through equalization to give clarity to your mix. And so just like a musical instrument, the form, textures and qualities of the surface boundaries of a space, we can think of the world as an orchestra of echoes, right? And every space we are in, you can use, whether it's a tiny little box that you sample, or a corridor, or a bathroom, or a staircase, or so you have this incredible palette of spaces. And here is just a picture from UNESCO of like some of their heritage sites, and so you can get so many ideas from you can go stand on the top of a canyon and record that echo. We have access to many plugins where you can use just like mathematical reverberation or echoes, but adding the connection to an actual place with its rich history, I think it's kind of like Foley recording in full. It's so much more satisfying to do. So for those of you who haven't encountered the technique of auralization. Here is a super simplified overview. What you see on the right is a spectrogram. It means you see frequency over time of an impulse response. On the left, you can see ways to record it, either by using a sine sweep. Lately, we use omnidirectional from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, and then multiplying with the inverse and getting a pop-like sound. Or you can use impulse like a revolver shot or a balloon pop. And then when you record it, you record the echo of the space. There's different ways to record it, whether, you know, like omnidirectional, the higher resolution of microphone we use for spatial impression, the better. And then we have our space where we record. And I just show this picture because also to think of not just a room inside or an enclosure, but also a landscape. The external world has interesting echoes. This is a project I did in Dalke Bottom Cave in the UK. And that was the Ambio B format microphone. And so this is the actual spectrogram of this impulse. And now when we use an anechoic recording, which is the idealized form because we don't record additional echoes, we can, I mean, if you have a kind of close microphone, you can still get pretty good results with AURALIZE, but the ideal is to use anechoic recordings. Now when we use the dry signal, in the frequency domain, you multiply it with the impulse response and you have a auralization. And you can kind of see there on the left, and here below you get the qualities of the impulse response. So now I'm just gonna, here is the anechoic recording of a friend of mine playing flute. And now we hear her auralized in that cave, in the impulse response in Dalke Bottom Cave. So I want to ask you, why do you think we have to preserve intangible heritage? Why is it important? Why is our team, this was the last time we visited Zagreb, here we are working at recording the acoustic fingerprints of various theaters. Professor Tronken over there has recorded over 100 sites so far. There's researchers all over the world trying to capture, to preserve this. Why is it important? Anyone, any thought that pops into your mind? Also the Bologna team.
Because if some spaces were used for like sound performances, and it's the most important thing was how was the sound. So it's important to investigate them.
Right. Yes, a very, very important point. Anyone else?
Are you asking us in terms of sound? Or in terms of, history all around.
This impulse response, why do we want to capture the 3D, like the 3D qualities of the sound of architectural heritage sites, natural heritage sites?
I mean, there's never really enough ways to capture some moments. So I guess by collecting all of them from around the world, you build your sound libraries of sorts,
Right.
so you can vary between recordings and how you want to use them. And while you're capturing all of those historic sites, you can recreate some things maybe from the past. And so
Right.
on.
It's part of our cultural memory, right? It's very important aspect, and unfortunately it's been, well, maybe it's also due to the technology. There's been, photography has been around for much longer, but auralization allows us to basically take sonic photos of the acoustic qualities of space, to take photos of echo, to be able to keep it in our collective heritage. Just like we have data banks on genetic information, we keep photos, we keep sketches, it's our collective memory. And I think if we look at, for example, the recent development in AI, it wouldn't have been possible if billions of photographs have not been fed to train these models so that now they can recognize, and interpret images. And the same with sound. At the moment, there's a lot of possibilities to recognize music, but it's also important to include these aspects that are intangible and has been until recently quite hard to capture. But now we can do it. And also a good example recently, when the Notre Dame had fire damage, acousticians were able to use the impulse responses that they had to restore the cathedral's acoustic qualities. However, for me, it's very important that we make encyclopedias. There's so much data, but I feel there's not enough data of acoustic spaces, and that's why we are teaching this course also to raise awareness of this heritage aspects that we have. Okay, so let's go on to understanding music of the past better. That, as you also mentioned, how would performers have adjusted their music based on the venues they were in, including venues that no longer exist or ruins that only partially exist, right? Especially music from before the invention of recording technologies. Like, how do we hear ancient music? How can we imagine it better? And then also, how can we apply that to contemporary composition? Or as in the next example, architecture. Sorry, I made a spelling. Oh no, wait, this is once a cathedral. Next to mosque, next to museum. The Hagia Sophia, fantastic Byzantium work of architecture. Due to current regulation, it's not possible to sing there or have a concert. But we are able to do it into a virtual sonic digital twin. Okay. So this is a rather long video. I just want to check for time. We still have. I'd like to show you most of the video because I think it's a beautiful example.
We perceive water, especially the water of the sea, as alive. This liveliness is captured in the Greek word marmarigma. The root is marmar. That root is in the Greek word for marble, marmaro. Hagia Sophia is the Cathedral of Constantinople, a church dedicated to the abstract concept of holy wisdom. It was built in the 4th century and it went through at least 2 basilica buildings until in the 6th century Justinian constructed the central plan building with its magnificent dome. Originally, the Justinianic Hagia Sophia had no monumental anthropomorphic human figures in the mosaics. It was entirely geometric and vegetal. As a result, the experience of the divine in that space was communicated through other means. The air under the dome became the main player, the medium through which the divine was manifested. I've always found this gallery so beautiful. Have you seen how they're not aligned? That the columns, they're not aligned with the ground level arcade? There are no axial lines that extend vertically, and that creates the impression of the building suspended from heaven, because nothing grows aligned from the floor to the ceiling. The void under the dome is recognized with a term in Byzantine sources, kalichoros. Kalos means beautiful, choros means choir, but the meaning of that word is connected to archaic Greek culture, to dance and to chant as human propitiation for divinity. So choros is essential. This moving into a circle, ambulatory movement, is what creates the divine reciprocation. These archaic Greek ideas acquired new significance in Byzantium. The dance aspect was, of course, cut out, but what remained is chant. And so it is chant that with its sonic energy fills up that interior, creates the enveloping sound. The sound waves are reflected in this interior from the polished surfaces of the marble, the floor, the walls, and the space sustains this reflection and reverberation for a long period of time. So the chant, in a sense, both comes from the mouths of the singers, but that continues to resound within that space, like a divine bodiless voice that you cannot see but you can hear. Light becomes solidified as it comes through the windows, especially the windows in the drum of the dome. and fills up the Kalichoros with radiance, creating this sphere of light. Columns of light dematerialize what are the real columns in the space. They feel as if their form is dissolved. It becomes a space in which you enter that world of imagining the divine, without having the divine being exteriorized and pictured on the walls. Hagia Sophia today is a museum, and no performance, whether instrumental or vocal, is allowed in this space. The only way a contemporary audience could experience this fantastic building as an instrument of the human voice is through digital technology. Auralizations have allowed us to imprint the acoustic signature of Hagia Sophia on a contemporary performance, and not as post-production, but to play it live.
When you're singing in Hagia Sophia, the sound radiates from your mouth, it goes and it fills the building, it interacts with the colonnades and it interacts with the dome, the semi-domes, comes back to the listener and brings copies of the sound that came out of the singer's voice a while back. So that's what we want to reproduce, and the first thing we do is we go to Hagia Sophia and we make measurements. In 2010, Sira Pencheva went to Hagia Sophia. She had a couple balloons with her, talked her guard into popping a balloon, standing where the choir would be, and she, was wearing a couple microphones by her ears and a little handheld recorder. The balloon pops. Sound rings out through the building, bringing back hints of that architecture to Bisera's ears, And we can analyze the result of that balloon pop recording and understand from that how the space processes sound, so that instead of a balloon pop, we can replace that balloon pop with a singing voice.
Wow. I mean, nobody's ever sung this piece, as far as I know. It's very odd though. So it's just we just need to. What do you think? F sharp. F sharp. Let's sing F sharp.
Capella Romana frequently has this experience of singing music that hasn't been sung in centuries. We specialize in the music of the Byzantine Empire and its church music. Because so much of this hasn't been sung in recent times, and the melodies in some cases are quite a bit different from the melodies that are used in today's churches, it's always a kind of voyage of discovery for us.
So John, can you give us the intonation?
The oralization adds to our experience of singing this music in terms of giving a sense of space, especially in terms of understanding what kind of tempo might have been correct for this music. As a singer, you're always reacting to the environment around you, so this is a chance for us to have some sense of what it would be like to perform it in Hagia Sophia. Now, when we perform in a place like Bing, using the auralization technology, we have to bifurcate our brains a bit. Because effectively you're dealing with two acoustics, the acoustics that is heard by the...
Okay, I'm gonna stop it there. I will put the slides on the oralization, on the AURALIZE website. So if you want to, you can get links to the video and view the rest. I just want to get through everything. Next, another vocal project, but a contemporary composition that was done in York by a composer called Ambrose Field. And in this case, it is interacting with architecture that no longer really exists. So it's a geometric acoustic model, and the singers are again singing, through a setup with loudspeakers, creating the effect of being in the space. Of course, with the previous project, it's very important to have very sophisticated feedback filters so that you don't get microphone feedback. So here is a little sample. I think it is maybe a bit loud. So. Then obtaining sensory data for hypothesis and speculative contemplation about the past. I was very lucky to go with a group of researchers to Labyrinthos in Chavin de Huantar, which is a 3,000-year-old temple complex, about 150 miles north of Lima. And there is no written text because it dates to pre-Inca history. There's no written language left by them. However, they left this stone complex with a maze of passageways, both underground and in buildings above the ground, with interesting acoustic effects noticeable. Researchers think that the original builders manipulated sound in surprisingly sophisticated ways. Through a mix of acoustics, musicology, ethnology, and archaeology, they are trying to answer questions about the use and rituals that took place here. In the 70s, archaeologist Luis Lumbreras proposed that a duct built into the complex was an acoustic canal, created so the river water mimicked a thundering, feline rumble throughout passages called galleries. Imagine an architectural organ that could be played with help from many side ducts. But for the most part, archaeologists gave little thought to the sound of Chavin until in 2001, John Rick discovered 20 decorated, well-worn coin shell trumpets, or pututus, at the complex. So there you can see the Labyrinthos. That's John Rick standing second to the left. There's a big plaza and bits of interior. Just want to get to it. Fascinating architecture. So there's one of the pututu shells. They were clearly instruments, but what for? So in 2008, this group of Stanford researchers went to record extensive impulse responses literally every 2 meters or meters through mapping out the entire gallery. And then one of the things they found was the resonance of the space is particularly at the frequency of the pututus. And these are also the same frequencies of typical male voices, sounds that are more prominent and drawn out. In some passageways, there are barely any sounds. Through a short duct, you can see a person walking but can't hear them. In others, a sound is very prominent and you can hear very far. So, in any case, there's loads and loads of speculations and ideas, but it's a fascinating place. And one of the theories that the group has gone with is the complex appeared at the time in the society that the society was transforming from an egalitarian to a hierarchical society, and there's evidence that priests may have used special effects, kind of theatrical effects, to make people believe that they are powerful. And they also used some like sound, light, and also some psychedelic plants. So a musician at the site played, this is Tito La Rosa, and he played this trumpist shell directly onto our chests to make us feel it inside the space. And the vibration when you feel it is tremendous through your body. It's an incredible effect. It's like having a sound massage, which leads me to another thought. Is like, you know, we also have resonances inside our bodies besides our ears. We also, you can bite on a transducer, and you also get bone conducting earphones. So you know, like, so your skull itself and your body itself is another place of resonance and echo. Anyway, that's there's also many other similar ancient sites where they, for example, the hypogym of Safrini in Malta, where there's been studies again with 110 hertz in the area of male vocal ranges, with you know, with resonance at that frequency. And there's speculations in this case that resonance was likely used to alter consciousness or induce trance during rituals, especially when combined with sensory deprivation in the dark chambers. Again, I'm not going to listen to these examples, but you can hear it. Later, again, another Kivik tomb in Sweden, and so on. There are many sites at the Kukulkan pyramid in Chichen Itza, where the staircase is creating this flutter effect, kind of like a bird, which was also a holy bird for them. Here is a depiction of Professor Iannace, has researched a legend of the Witch's Valley, where this olive tree, there's a magical olive tree around which, according to legend, rituals took place, and through researching the impulse responses in the valley, he was able to make a good guess of which tree it was. So I don't know if you want to take a break at this point. How are you feeling? Or a little bit later? I still have a few slides left before the second section. Shall I push on?
Maybe, yeah.
Okay. Then acoustic preservation, creating digital twins to give immersive access. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's kind of similar to the previous example. This one is the Chauvet Cave. I'm not going to play it now, but it's basically a VR version of the Chauvet Cave in France, where again human breath, the CO2, destroys these 1,000-year-old cave rock art paintings, and thus the only way to access it is through going to a space that's modeled. And there's a VR application where you can hear it in VR. This is just a video of the VR. So you can look that up as well. Then Rupert Till made, there's the Soundgate project from the University of Huddersfield, where he and other researchers modeled virtual Stonehenge. And again, there's a Soundgate app that you can access, which is quite interesting to listen to, with different times of the day, different periods, and so on. Then imagining distant spaces and even sound on other planets. Did you know you can do ambisonic kind of impulse recording underwater? It's also possible to use this. Like, let's play that. So this example was developed in Finland by Delikaris Manias et al. And consists of a tetrahedral array of hydrophones mounted on a short steel pole. And so again, I think it's better when you listen binaurally to hear it. Then other examples are also NASA's Perseverance rover provided the first ever sound recordings on Mars. Despite the disappointment of the Spectrum microphone being mono, recordings of wind, the rover driving, the rover's helicopter, and even a laser zapping sound have provided valuable data relating to how sound may behave in that atmosphere. Okay. Then, yeah, there's also fascinating examples of, you know, that there are hydrophone networks and arrays under the ocean to listen, for example, for illegal nuclear testing. So through a process of triangulation, it's possible to locate sounds in the ocean and also use this as very valuable data. Okay, next I want to show you an example of real-time auralization in the browser, which is a project I did basically due to the frustration of the fact that in Google Earth you can walk around anywhere on the planet and see it, and to great detail, but you cannot hear it. You can hear, there's great maps that exist of field recordings, for example, this nature sound map, but not really of impulse responses. They are a growing collection of databases, but not where you can interactively listen in real time. So I'm going to demo it to you a little bit. Basically, this is a browser-based app that used JS Ambisonics for first-order panning. It also uses web audio, JavaScript libraries, and this kind of visual interface to experience sound. So The green dots are places that's been recorded, and then the orange dots are creations by artists. There's been a first release of an album where I curated 9 artists to use the idea of space and sound. Some fabricated impulse responses that don't really exist, they created it, but used the same techniques in sound design. And so it's also a collection of other people's work. So if anyone wants a user account, I can create it for you. And so anyone can use it as a tool. So I'm just going to show you 3 more things and then we're done with this. So you can also search here the different sites. I may have some feedback issues, so let me just be careful. This has been recorded with the Ambio first order. And I'm going to reluctantly just see what happens. And when I pan, it's good to listen on headphones because it decodes binaurally, but you can then experience the space. It also works on a phone. And you can increase how much of the reverb you hear versus not. You can use it as a tool to record the clip and read more info about the researcher or artist who made it. There. Oops, no, it doesn't go away. And yeah, it's kind of one thing. Then I want to play you, but it may feed back the longest echo that's known in the world, which is the Inchenden tank. I think I'll try this one. It's in Scotland and I think it's oil tanks. Yeah, it was used as oil tanks, built for war purposes. It's like 70 or 80 seconds long. Okay, this may be problematic. Let's see. One. Okay, sorry. It's too much. It's extremely long, so headphone, but listen to it on headphones. Okay. Anyway, you're invited to explore this. There's also some impulse responses from our department from previous projects like Sapirio and Agora. Maybe in the future we will add more things and also add the impulse responses we collectively took. Okay, then let me just go back to I don't know why I cannot see the slides. Let's close this. Sorry, I lost my slides. Anyway, I want to take a break at this point. Shall we say 10 minutes? And then we're going to come back for a tutorial on how to do it in Reaper.